Welcome to Inside Politics with Kevin Klein, beyond the headlines, beyond the spin. Straight facts, sharp analysis, and common sense conversation you won't hear anywhere else. Let's get started.
Welcome to another edition of Inside Politics. I'm joined by my two colleagues from the Winnipeg Sun. I have Royce Coop, who is also a professor at the University of Manitoba. Political Sciences is his course. And we have Jeff Currier, former radio talk show host and columnist with the Winnipeg Sun. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me here today. The political world is still in chaos, although I think it's been in chaos for the last decade, especially here in Canada. But we've now seen our newly minted Prime Minister, Mark Carney, head down to Washington for a meeting with Donald Trump. I thought I saw somewhere a stat online that Carney spoke for just under 4 minutes and Trump for just over 26. So was this a fruitful meeting? Did anything come from it? Or should we all be happy-go-lucky, things are looking good? Or was it just another one of those political movements or moments?
Well, it looked nice. And Carney said some of the right things. He got his soundbite by saying that Canada is never going to be for sale. I mean, that was the great soundbite. And he spoke to Donald Trump in terms he could understand, which is real estate. And using those, so in that sense, it was a win for Carney because it made him look good. But in terms of substance, we're exactly where we were a week ago, which is the tariffs are all still in place. Nothing really has changed very much in a substantive fashion.
Yeah, nothing has changed. We still have tariffs. Now we have a brand new tariff that's going to target our film industry, which will actually affect Manitoba directly. Nothing has changed in any real sense. What we got over the last few weeks was Mark Carney and the Liberal Party talking about putting their elbows up and holding Donald Trump to account. And he was an existential threat to the country and he was going to break us and steal our resources. And what was the response in the first meeting? It was for Carney to call Trump a, quote, transformational president. For Trump to say, while Carney is sitting right there, that he thinks he was the biggest reason why Carney won the election, and they kind of snickered about that, and it seems like a great relationship. The reality is Donald Trump still thinks that Canada should be the 51st state. He said it while Carney was sitting right beside him. He just wants to be a little kind of nicer about it while he's complimenting the Prime Minister. I don't know. If I was an elbows up liberal voter who just cast my ballot for Carney, I would feel a little bit hoodwinked after that meeting, to be honest.
Well, I think both your analogies are very good. Two things that I want to touch on. First, let's talk about the film industry. Yeah, that is going to hurt, especially people in Manitoba, quite a bit if he puts that 100% tariff on. I did talk to a couple of people now, two different people that don't know each other that work in the film industry. Both of them have been told some productions have already been put on hold in Manitoba.
Yeah.
Now, that could be because of the tariff, but it also could be because of an article that I wrote last week that was in the Winnipeg Sun, where Canoe took away the money that was being used to entice WestJet to fly between Winnipeg and LA. Also a direct flight to Atlanta. And then just the other day, WestJet came out and announced that they're going to cancel that flight between Los Angeles and Winnipeg. So we're doing more. I think we're doing more to hurt ourselves than we are to help ourselves with the Canoe government here. Because yes, we have the tariffs. Not only do we have the tariffs now to make people think twice, now we're taking away that direct flight. So we're making it harder. And I saw some comments when I wrote my article of people saying, well, people in Hollywood have private planes. No, the people that are coming to do these films do not have private planes. They're not the actors. They're not, John Travolta, who has his own 747. They fly commercial, believe it or not. This is what happens, and we need a direct flight because without that, it makes it very difficult to do business. So that's number one. Number two is I agree with you guys that really nothing has changed. Nothing changed after the election. Nothing is different in Canada other than it's not top of mind right now. I took from that meeting, I agree with Jeff. I thought Carney presented himself very well. He was very well spoken. He kept himself calm. He was cool. He was collected. He played the game a little bit. Trump did come back when he said Canada's not for sale and say, well, never say never, which the media didn't pick up on. But they had a very good discussion and it looked good on camera. But I don't get a sense of urgency. We've heard now that they have a deal in place with the UK. Trump hasn't signed it yet, but they have a deal in place with the UK that looks pretty good. Gives Trump what he wants, gives the UK what they want. But I don't get that sense of urgency here in Canada at all. Am I missing that, or have I hit the nail on the head here? Because I don't get it from our prime minister that there's a sense of urgency. We saw a shift go down in Oshawa at one of the plants. We're seeing
Yeah.
the change in the airlines now. We're seeing a lot of changes, and we're seeing companies leave. Some companies, and we saw RBC pull back on their net zero agenda. Companies are pushing back now in Canada, and it's not just the tariffs. It's bad policy. Like it or not, bad policy in Canada is driving businesses out, and I don't get a sense of urgency from Canoe. I don't get a sense of urgency from Carney.
No, you don't get that feeling. Now, in the back rooms there might be, but they're certainly not presenting any kind of urgency or a sense that immediate action is required on any of these issues. And I know, Kevin, you've written extensively about our reluctance in Manitoba to tap into our potential mining resources, which could make us a have province. But there's no appetite for that at the government level, it seems. And from a national standpoint, Mark Carney is very much on the environmental side of things, and so I know. Yes, he has taken away the consumer portion of the carbon tax, but I think Canadians should be prepared that there are going to be carbon levies, one fashion or another, and the development of our natural resources is going to be discouraged at the national level. So, okay, so what if that's going to happen? And the indications are that if Carney follows through with the kinds of things that he's talked about in the past, what do we do then economically to drive this country? What's going to be the driver?
Yeah, and in that respect, Canada was behind the eight ball even before Trump came along. Now we have these tariffs. Absolutely nothing has changed, and we are going to see the consequences of that. We're going to lose shifts. Production is going to move to the United States. Cost of living is going to go up as costs go up. All that is coming. Everything that people objected to with Justin Trudeau's government is going to continue on under Mark Carney. There's been no real movement to address any of these big issues, and the trip to Washington wasn't a success. And so, I've heard people talk about a hangover of the Trudeau era. We're in a hangover. No, we're not in a hangover. We're still knocking back drinks right now. The hangover is still in the future, and it's going to be a bad one.
It's interesting that we are knocking back drinks, right? I think Jeff, you hit it on the head of the nail there as well when you said about Canoe and not getting minerals out of the ground. Although I'll note that Premier Canoe did send a letter to Carney saying how important it is to get minerals out of the ground and how we should be focusing on this and making it a national project. It's like, well, buddy. That's on you, man. I mean, other provinces and other premiers have come forward and developed an express lane, if you will, to get minerals out of the ground. And you're writing letters to Carney telling him he should do that. So again, that's that sense of urgency. It's all talk, it's all acting, it's all videos and such, but nothing getting done. The Trump meeting, again, to your point, Royce, where it is the same thing. And I noticed when I watched that Melanie Jolie was there with Carney, and then of course Trump talked about the bad negotiator, the person that he did not like, that made it worse for Canada than anybody else, and I think he was referring to Freeland. Was he not referring to Chrystia Freeland when he was talking about the worst person ever?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question he was referring to Chrystia Freeland. Now, he probably didn't like negotiating with her because she's a pretty tough individual. However, if you look at her record as finance minister, I think she was hopelessly miscast as a finance minister. Her strength is in foreign affairs. That's where she should have been. But she was the most capable person that Justin Trudeau had at his disposal. So she winds up as finance minister and was a disaster in that portfolio.
Yeah, with Trump insulting Freeland, she should probably carry that as kind of a badge of honor. She was actually doing her job properly if he wasn't happy with her. I think I mentioned this last week when we talked about the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, was just elected a few months ago. His popularity has just plummeted since then. It's just in the absolute basement. And Part of the reason for that is because a lot of the problems that country has, the economic issues, cost of living issues, they haven't been fixed. That people kind of feel like they haven't been taken seriously. There's been a kind of relaxed attitude towards them. I can definitely see the same thing happening in Canada. Carney is not that popular to start with, and I actually think Canada's economic problems are a lot worse than the United Kingdom. And so we could see something like that happen in Canada if some of these issues aren't addressed more quickly. And with the tariffs staying where they are, they're going to be very hard to address.
We're not selling Canada. That's what I noticed about Trump. Hate him, love him, whatever you'd like, it doesn't matter to me. But he's trying to sell America, whether he's doing it the right way or not. He's trying to force businesses to come back to America. He's trying to force companies to expand in America. He's trying to force companies to buy American. He's trying to, make America first, yes, and we talk about making Canada first and so on. But we're not selling Canada in all these discussions. All of these discussions we're having are reactionary discussions. I think we should be out there selling Canada. Yes, we should be getting our minerals out of the ground. That's one of them. But why we have such good power opportunities in Manitoba and Quebec and in other places? Why aren't we going after the data mining companies? Why aren't we going after the larger industries and making life easier for them? We're talking about ways. Our leaders right now are talking about ways to put more tariffs on products so that we have money so we can give it to the people that lose their jobs. That's our plan. And for whatever reason, most of Canada is okay with that. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to charge 10 times more for a product and we'll give people a little bit of money that have lost their jobs. We're not out there selling Canada. We're not knocking on doors of other car companies saying, you know what, the U.S. doesn't want us to have our own cars, or that we don't want to pay tariffs for cars coming in from the U.S. Let's help you build a plant. Let's help you build Canadian products. Let's open that door and let's put the time in. Am I wrong in thinking that we're missing the single biggest opportunity? Yes, minerals out of the ground or natural resources. But why the hell are we not selling Canada? Why haven't we gotten rid of the red tape and have an express lane for companies to come and start here?
Well, there's no quick answer to that, but this is not a new phenomenon. It's a huge problem. Certainly here in Manitoba, this is a very difficult province to which we should be trying to attract business because of our tax structure. The short answer that holds Canada back is our tax structure. That's what discourages investment in Canada. It's what discourages businesses from locating in a place like Manitoba. If you look at what Saskatchewan and Alberta have done in recent years to make it more palatable for businesses to locate there, Manitoba is still way behind the eight ball. Years ago, remember when the Fukushima nuclear reactor had disrupted business in Japan? So this is back when Greg Selinger was still premier in Manitoba. And I thought, here's an opportunity for you, because the auto plants had shut down in Japan, right? Manufacturing had shut down because tsunamis and all that. This was like a dreadful situation. Should we not have been over there knocking on the doors of Honda and Toyota saying, look, we've got lots of land here. Why don't you, temporarily, mind you, come and set up a plant here in Manitoba where you can manufacture your cars. We'll give you a great tax deal on the land that you want to buy because we got nothing but land. We will give you free hydro for the first 5 years to power your plant. Well, you're talking about a couple of thousand high-paying union jobs in the manufacturing sector, and we didn't even try. We never even made the attempt to get there. And that's just one example. That's just one example of how we have failed to get on the international stage and be aggressive about attracting investment and business and job creation. And that's just one little Manitoba story, but there are many, many more from coast to coast in Canada.
It's exactly what I'm talking about. What a wonderful example. It's like I am at my point where I'm hearing politicians going on saying, we're going to go after American doctors. We're going to go after American nurses. They don't want to be in the United States. They don't like Trump. They're going to come up here. It's going to help our healthcare system. Don't listen to them because it's false. I called a friend who's a doctor in the U.S. I spoke to a friend who is a nurse in the United States. Neither one of them, both of them true patriots. They love Canada. They wouldn't come back because the tax system. They both said the exact same thing. Do you know how much money I would lose coming back to Canada? And their other answer
Yeah.
was Trump's only in power for a few more years. If I can't move every time somebody gets elected that I don't like, right? So for the government to spend, and we're going to spend money promoting, Manitoba or whatever to try to attract these American nurses and doctors. What a ridiculous, nonsensical thing to do. It is a waste of money. They're not going to come here and pay 54% tax when they're paying under 30 probably. They're not going to do that. So again, it gets back to we're not selling Canada. If you want to get doctors and nurses, I guess if you want to attract them, you could do almost what Jeff just said and say, okay, well, if you're a doctor, you don't pay taxes in Canada. Now you might get some that would consider coming.
Oh, yeah. Why don't we just grow them and train them? There's a concept. Let's grow them and train them.
Yeah.
Instead of poaching them.
Yeah, that's the solution. It actually requires investment, upfront investment, some work. I mean, the truth is that Canadians get the governments they deserve. They get the governments that they elect, and there are whole swaths of this country that have a view that our best days are behind us, and they're happy to elect politicians that are there to kind of manage our slow decline. And it's not just the people or governments; it's the business community, kind of the establishment business community in Canada doesn't value innovation. It doesn't invest in research and development, even remotely to the same extent as the American business community does. And this is something that is going to contribute to this problem over, not taking up opportunities, not running with opportunities that present themselves. It's a government problem. It's also a business problem related to the establishment kind of business community in this country. I'm not talking about small entrepreneurs. I mean, they have to kind of necessarily be innovative. They have to necessarily take chances and take opportunities when they present themselves. But the old Laurentian banking business, big corporation community in Canada, I think is no good on a lot of these things.
Well, I think Canada had better take note that if you look, there's a push on right now from the United States to get small entrepreneurs from Canada down there. They've opened up a special visa. I think it's the E2 visa, $100,000 investment. If you want to do your company down there, if you work online and you have a company, they can get you an E2 visa to move down there. This is big business right now. And if you
just if I could, Kevin, the failure rate of small biz startups in Canada is 96%.
Yeah, I believe that.
The failure rate is 96%. We have created such a business unfriendly environment. Now, to be sure, some of those businesses are poorly run. That's going to happen. But we have created such a business unfriendly environment in Canada, and particularly here in our province of Manitoba. Why would anybody do it? I'm just stunned that anybody would even try to start up a business here. It requires so much courage to do that. I have undying admiration for anybody who starts up a business, particularly in a place like Manitoba, but anywhere in Canada, because it is really, really a tough go. You're putting your life and your savings, everything is on the line when you start up a small business.
Well,
and
Jeff,
they drive the economy, and yet they get precious little support.
I can attest to that. Yeah. We bought the Winnipeg Suns almost a year ago now, and a month hasn't gone by when I haven't had to deal with something that the government wants. This fee, that fee, here's another fee. Now you got to do this. Now you got to do that. Here's another hoop to jump through. As soon as you think you've jumped through all the hoops, hey, look, here's a whole new group with a whole bunch more hoops to jump through. And now you got to jump through this hoop. You got to jump through that hoop. It's insurmountable. The time that you look at that you spend operating a business in Canada and dealing with government requirements from municipal to provincial to federal, it's ongoing. And to see the fact that we're the only city now in all of Canada, I think all of North America, that charges a business tax, Winnipeg. You can't tell me that you're doing what you need to do to attract business by charging a business tax. And I want to mention, I'll give you the last word, Roy, something that I think you had said that really makes sense, is we are electing people, and I want to make sure I get it right, to manage our slow decline. That's
Yeah.
bingo. That is incredible. That is exactly how people better start looking at what's happening in Canada, because it's just like your healthcare system, folks. The healthcare system is failed. It's not coming back to what it was before because we've allowed people to be in there and governments to be in there and manage the slow decline of our healthcare to a point where I had to go to the emergency room for something with someone. It wasn't for me, but we were there, and the doctor came in to talk to the patient next to us. And of course, you try not to listen, but you hear the very first comment was, "Do you want us to resuscitate you?" I thought, well, there's a sales pitch.
Wow.
You walk in and the very first thing you say to somebody is not, "How are you feeling? How can we help you? What's going on today? I need to get out there. We need to have this conversation. Do you want us to resuscitate you?" Like, come on. So you were bang on, Royce. I am going to bow down to you on that, because that is absolutely
Oh,
what's happening in Canada. We are electing people at the municipal level, at the provincial level, and at the federal level to manage our slow decline, and we seem to be okay with it.
yeah. I think the one Jeff made a comment that I think is really important, not just for healthcare, but for this country as a whole. And that's that when we have a problem, for example, we don't have enough doctors in this country. We have to fix it. We know how to fix it. We need to train people, get them through, get them into Canadian hospitals. And too often people in government, they identify these shortcuts. We're gonna recruit doctors from the United States as though any of them are going to come. We're going to raid African countries, to bring all these doctors over. Well, what happens to those countries once Canada has stolen all their doctors out from under them and sent them to Saskatchewan, rural Saskatchewan, to practice medicine? There are real problems, there are solutions, but we actually need politicians that are willing to say, like, these are tough problems, but we have to kind of confront them head on. Stop looking to these shortcuts, and that applies across a wide range of sectors, not just healthcare.
It's a very good point, and I think when you talk about that, let's train here in Canada. But friends of mine that went through med school and became nurses and so on, they all left. I think I only know two that stayed. So we can train them, but what do? Do you put in legislation saying, okay, medical school is free, but you have to stay? I brought that up once at a cabinet meeting, and I thought I was going to get tarred and feathered, like they were going to tie me up and beat the crap out of me or something like that, because it was the most ridiculous thing in the world. Because they said, well, people will just challenge it in court and they'll leave. We can't do that. I thought, well,
Oh,
but they did it on Northern Exposure. I mean, you remember that show from the 90s? I mean, what that doctor had to, what was his name? Fleischman? Fleischman had to go and practice medicine in, Sicily, Alaska for 4 years. Why can't we do it
sure,
here?
sure, sure. And there's lots of ways to address that. Quebec does lots of things like that. I've got a real problem, to be honest, with people who are Canadians and they attend schools that are highly subsidized by Canadians, by taxpayers, by working class people, get their fancy degrees and then head for greener pastures. I would like to see people actually have some gratitude and have some loyalty to this country and stay and actually invest their labor into their own country rather than only thinking about themselves. Your cabinet colleagues might want to beat me up for saying that, Kevin, but yeah, there's ways to deal with this. We just need leaders that are willing to make the tough choices.
Well, and I don't think it's that tough of a choice, right? I think it's okay to say, look, if we're going to give you free medical, if we're going to pay for your education, you're staying for 5 or 10 years. And if you can get a
Yeah,
young person to
yeah.
stay for 5 or 10 years, you make it part of legislation they can't leave. I mean, they're going to put roots down. They're going to meet somebody. They're going to have children. They're not going to want to leave. But that's what I think is our biggest problem. Again, it goes back to what I wanted to talk about earlier in the final segment is we're not doing anything to help Canada. We're not selling Canada. I mean, it's great to say do all the fun advertising and show people skiing and cheering at a whiteout party or, having beaver tails at a fair or whatever. That's not going to attract the best and brightest minds. That's not what's going to do it. And I guess that's what I wanted to start the segment off with is I think we've got to do more to sell Canada. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe in the future, maybe Carney will do that. So next week, I guess we'll talk about. We want to see what happens with the cabinet and such. And this weekend, what are your columns this weekend, real quickly? Royce, what's your column on this weekend?
On the PC party in Manitoba, I think Jeff wrote about the same thing. So it's a PC heavy weekend in the sun.
Okay, and what's your take on it? Give us a little bit of a teaser. What can we expect?
Well, I went through and looked at Abi Khan and compared him to previous premiers, where in the party he comes from, some of the things he's going to have to do now that he's the leader. Clearly, there are divisions in the party, and the first thing he's going to have to do is try to work towards fixing some of those things. Yeah, we had kind of a general column. We now seen 1 week, Abi Khan as being leader of the opposition for a week, and so it seems like the right time to start to think about these kinds of things.
Okay. Jeff, yours?
Yeah, I tend to focus on the money because traditionally the progressive conservatives have done very, very well in terms of fundraising. Not the case in the last couple of years. So what is Abi Khan going to have to do to turn that around, to get people who traditionally supported the party financially? That's your base. Without the money, as we all know, you can't fight an election unless you've got the cash to do it.
Well, look, you had a year and a half for a leadership race. You sold less than 11,000 memberships. You got less than
6,800 voted in that.
Yeah, 6,800. Less than 7,000 voted. Yeah. So
6,800 people voted for the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba.
So there's no base.
That's a problem.
So the base is gone.
Right. Yeah. The disinterest, the apathy, the lack of interest in the party. So that's essentially this piece we got in today's Under Facts Matter about boys and the boy problem. We did try to get people to take a look at that one. Look at Facts Matter today.
Good. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. As always, we appreciate it if you would like the video, follow us, and subscribe to the channel. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for watching Inside Politics with Kevin Klein. Please like and subscribe to this channel and visit thewinnipegssun.com for more.